Pier 57 at Seattle's waterfront is home to Miners Landing. Perhaps best known for the Seattle Great Wheel, attracting tourists and locals to take in the views of Puget Sound and the city. This year, the gondolas turned into dinner cars for a one-of-a-kind experience, taking dining to new heights. 12 of the 42 heated and air-conditioned gondolas are transformed into your own restaurant cabin with white tablecloths and classical music. A breathtaking view is the perfect backdrop for a 4-course Pacific Northwest-style seafood dinner served Thursday through Saturday nights.
For a half hour, you ride around. It'll stop then and give you then your main course and your dessert. And then you go for another half hour or so.
Seeing the wheel turn out excited crowds again is renewed hope for Hal Griffith, the humble owner of Miners Landing, who has been through his fair share of ups and downs.
Well, I'll tell you, every day is an exciting day. There's never a dull moment, that's for sure. The viaduct coming down was big.
The Alaskan Way Viaduct was taken down in 2019, and with it, took out a lot of parking waterfront businesses relied on. The constant construction already had people avoiding the area.
And you have the pandemic. It's been devastating for the waterfront as well as any business downtown or anywhere really.
And then in September of 2020, during demolition work on neighboring Pier 58, it collapsed when severely deteriorated pilings caved, sending workers, trees, a concrete terrace, and a 4-ton fountain plunging into Elliott Bay.
That was a big blow that we had that happen. They were concerned about the safety of our pier. If more of that pier would fall down, would it fall into our pier? So they red tagged, which means they closed our building. We had to shut everything down, including the wheel, and it wasn't opened up again until near the end of the year of last year.
This spot where the pier fell is also where Seattle's early expansion ignited at the turn of the century. In July of 1897, the steamship Portland docked in Seattle from Alaska, carrying 68 miners and what newspapers said was a ton of gold.
Between Pier 58 and our pier, Miners Landing, is where the ton of gold was landed in 1897. And that's what really started the gold rush.
Seattle merchants advertised their new port status, declaring the city as the gateway to the gold fields, and Seattle's population doubled by 1900.
I felt that I had a piece of history that was available to us, and I've always tried to promote the idea that the history is centered around the gold rush and the miners. See, this is all the gold rush period.
Historical touches keep the miners' theme alive, and a nod to Pacific Northwest heritage can be seen around every corner.
Walk the planks of history.
Griffith came to the pier in the 60s. Most of the piers along the waterfront then were used for storage.
I had a business, and it was a salvage business, and I needed a place to sell it and to store it. And so I rented from the Port of Seattle on a month-to-month basis the pier. And that's how I got started on the pier. One thing led to another. We put a fast food counter in and a little restaurant. Our retail store was originally called Salvage Mart, and eventually that got changed to Pirates Plunder.
Rebuilding the electrical, structural, pilings underneath, and the inside took years. While most neighboring piers have been modernized, Griffith wanted to keep the architectural feel and historical elements.
These were all in good shape here, but we sandblasted all the wood. It was just an open space that was dark and gloomy and rainy. The front end of the building was offices in the old days. And then you went into the warehouse, and the roof was in such bad shape. The pigeons were there. If it rained, the water was dripping from the ceiling. There was so much soaked up wood up above. So it was just a great big empty cavity that was very decayed. White Pan, give me a little sample.
That decayed cavity is long gone, and walking the front end now, you get a whiff of alder smoked salmon on the wood stove.
That's Columbia River salmon.
Down from the seafood counter, there's homemade ice cream.
There's a couple loaves in there.
A sourdough bakery, and the famous crab pot was all his original idea.
1, 2, 3. Voila!
It's just so fun to see people just absolutely enjoy with their hands and ripping things apart, and just like it's a food fight.
The attractions make the special memories for visitors.
Had their picture taken, then it slips in here.
The carousel inside was one of Hal's first big additions. Outside, the 175-foot, 170,000-pound great wheel was a feat of its own to build at the edge of the pier.
It barely fit. We had to take a yardstick and measure to make sure that it would fit.
A dream of Hal's for more than 3 decades, it finally got approval by the city and opened in 2012, now an iconic part of the Seattle cityscape.
You get to fly through the state of Washington.
And Wings Over Washington take people on a virtual flight across the state.
We wanted to make something that was very themed and immersive and kind of all-encompassing.
At 83 years old, Hal Griffith is still here at the pier almost every day.
I'm inspired each day to get up and be a part of things.
Griffith says he's proud of the legacy he gets to leave behind for his kids and his city.
I think there's people around me sometimes say, well, maybe you should go home, Dad. Why don't you leave things alone and just go home?
An optimist at heart, his tenacity has kept him forging ahead, reinventing this lifelong dream of showcasing Seattle's sights, flavors, and fun while preserving its history.
You can't be stagnant. You can't just rely on one thing that you have. You have to keep adding, especially when you have a pier like ours.